For this lesson, we're going to learn about the structures of the eye. The eye is one of the easiest ones to teach because it does have some specific structures to it. So as long as you follow along with the structures, you'll be able to pick it up kind of quickly. The only thing, again, is that the eye we're going to draw today is in general. And you have to remember that you can learn the general proportions, you can learn the general structures, but you still need to look at what you actually look like and make the changes for you. So begin by just drawing a pre-drawing of your eye to give yourself a sense of what you are starting with. And then down here at the bottom, we will work on our larger eye together. So one thing I want to start with is just positioning of this. Even though we've talked about that your face is symmetrical, your eyes are not identical to each other. And in fact, they're actually mirror images of each other. So in terms of where the structure is. So for this eye that we're going to work with, we're going to start imagining that the nose is on your left and that your ear is going to be on your right. So that way you can kind of put into perspective where these things are. So to start us off, one major kind of complication that people have is that they tend to think that our eyes are completely lemon-shaped. But in reality, we don't have these sharp corners. Your eyes don't realistically look like that. So if we look at our magazine example, you'll actually see more of a curvature towards your eye, and you'll actually see on the other side that it doesn't even match up. So we're going to talk about how to do that first. To start with, we don't have that corner. Instead, closest to your nose, we're going to have what we call a tear duct. And that's that kind of round pinky thing that you see when you look into your eye closest to your nose. So you want to label that tear duct. And this is actually where your eye produces the liquid. So if you are going to cry or your eyes start to moisten up a little bit, it comes from the tear duct and moves its way over. Now with the top lid, again, it's not lemon shaped. It actually comes up, around, and back down. So it doesn't go just up completely round. It goes at a certain angle. So with this, you want to come up, over, and down towards your ear. And let it sort of fade away as you go. Now I'm drawing a gigantic eye. You probably want to try it a little bit smaller for your first time, especially because in your final picture it's going to be smaller. So this we're going to call our upper lid, and there's going to be multiple parts to that, but we're going to start with the upper lid and we're going to jump down to the lower lid. With this one, people tend to make the surprise art party eye, like your eye is open all the way down to your lips, but really it's actually much less of a curve to it. It's not flat, but it's definitely not as curved as the top part. So from this, you're going to come down a little bit from the tear duct. You are going to have that curve, but it's not as curved. Notice it's much less of a curve. And then it actually tucks into the space underneath your top lid. So that's your upper lid. This is going to be your lower lid. Okay. So with that, our next step is to kind of make this a little bit more realistic. When you go to blink, a lot of people draw this sort of lampshade on top of their eyes as if they had some sort of covering. But this eye actually can't blink. It can't open and close because of the way it's drawn. It's all connected. In reality, you do have an upper lid, but it's actually based on this crease that you're seeing here. It doesn't connect to the tear duct or the other side. So you want to look for where your crease actually starts, and generally it's a little bit above the tear duct, and it'll come around and over, and then it sort of fades out again. So it doesn't hit the other side. It doesn't connect. It goes out to that side. So this is the upper lid crease. And that's what allows us to actually blink. Upper lid crease. Cool. The bottom lid, you may be thinking, well, I don't really have a bottom lid. But if you look very closely, there are actually a couple lines that you can draw to make this a little bit more realistic. The first is just below the line for your lower lid, and it actually runs parallel. If you've ever looked very closely at your eye at the bottom, what you'll notice is you actually have a double line, one that touches your eyeball itself and the other where your lashes are coming from. Your lashes don't come directly out of your eyeball, and we'll talk about that as we move our way around. You can think of that as the lower lid crease, but actually there's another space. It's just a very light line. As you get older, it shows a little bit more, or if you're really tired, this one will show a little bit more. So we don't draw it as a dark line. We draw it more of just a line that sort of fades away, because depending on how you look that day, it may look different. But there is going to be a little crease there, and we're going to define it later by shadows. But this is what we're going to call our lower lid crease. Okay. Now we will get to the eyelashes and all of that, but now that we've kind of got the outside structure of the eye, I want to go more into the inside so you can see what's actually happening in here. First of all, to show that our eyeball is actually round, one way that you can see that and you know that is the edge of your tear duct. Your tear duct has an end to it, and that's that little pink space there. You want to have that sort of curve at the corner, and that starts to give the impression that your eye is round. For that, then the next space you want to go is actually drawing what we call the iris. That's the colorful part of your eye. And with that, you don't want to draw a teeny tiny little iris. You also don't want to have the iris take up your entire eye. So you've got to pay attention to what size you're actually looking for. One thing to note is that your iris is actually bigger than the space that you've left for your eye. Unless you're looking up or down, you're not going to see all of that circle. So I don't even want you to draw it as a circle. Instead, I want you to draw just the white parts. Look for the shape of the white part of your eye and draw that, because it'll show you where those spaces need to be, and it'll keep you from going too big or too small. So if you know you're just actually drawing the white part, you can get it a little bit more realistic, and you'll start to see your iris actually inside of the eye socket. And we'll call that our iris. Inside of your iris is your pupil. Now your pupil size will change depending on how much light you're looking at. If you've ever been outside on a really bright day and you go inside and for a second you can't see, that's because of the iris. The iris actually opens and closes, or expands and contracts with the amount of light. If there's a lot of light, it closes up a little bit so you don't see as much light coming in and you're able to focus on the picture. If there's less light, it starts to expand a little bit to let more light in and for it to focus. So when you come in and you start to see a little bit more from being outside to going inside, that's because your pupil is actually expanded. Interesting trick. You could try it later. To color your iris though, so your pupil is very dark. Your iris actually has a pattern to it. You don't want to just color the whole thing in and say, yay, there's my eye. Instead, if you look, you'll see almost like a bunch of lines, a pattern of lines. Now they do kind of go over each other, but you do want to get that colored in that pattern. So just like your hair, it's not starting in the same place. It's actually going to go from the pupil to the edge of your iris. And again, I'm drawing a gigantic eye, so maybe we'll be able to fast forward the video a little bit in a moment and you won't have to watch me color the whole thing. But with this, I'm trying to get those lines straight, and I want to get them next to each other enough that it does color it in, but it also shows that pattern. Now to start off, if my craftsmanship's not awesome, it's okay, but as I go to fix it up, I want to make sure that I go and I get in between those spaces. But you do want to kind of get a uniform color as you go. La, 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 la. So there you go. That starts to give you your texture. And I've gone really quickly because my eye is super big and your eye isn't going to be that big. You'll also notice that around the iris you may have like a darker outline, and you could go ahead and shade that in if you need to. If you wear contact lenses, you may even see a light shadow of your contact lens around the iris, and that's totally fine to get that in as well because that's something you're seeing on you. Next step, we want to, again, make this look a little bit more three-dimensional. So something to think about is that, first of all, your tear duct is that pink color, so we wouldn't want to leave it just white. So we would shade that a little bit, not too dark, but just a little bit. Then around the corners of your eye, or that round area, you want to kind of draw in a little bit of a shadow. And that's what's going to make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. The fact that your lid actually covers the eye, and that shadow will really show that. And then the same thing in the corners, you just want to bring it in a little bit. You want to follow the shape of your eye to do that, and then just creating that shadow around it. And again, you can always clean stuff up. That's why we have pencils, so use your pencil if you need to. The next thing we want to do are your eyelashes. I'll tell you right now, you do not have tarantulas growing out of your eyes. This is what I get all the time in pre-drawing. For some reason, we all think we have these giant eyelashes. Actually, if you look at your eyelashes, they tend to actually grow a little bit away from your tear duct, and they'll grow at an angle towards the ear side of your face. And when you're drawing these, you don't want to have them all going the same height. They grow in clusters where some of them are longer and some of them are shorter. They'll go maybe up to your crease, maybe a little bit shorter, but they're not going to go much farther than that. You don't want to draw them all the way up to your eyebrow. That would be a little bit much. As you get towards the ear, again, I said they're going at an angle, they're actually going to start to move towards the ear and be longer and more defined towards your ear. So if you've ever seen a cartoon where they usually just draw like the 3 lashes on the side, they draw those 3 lashes because towards the side, you're definitely going to see more of them. So now, again, you can see my lashes are going over, almost like a swoosh. They're going over to the side, and you'll see them more by the ear. On the bottom lid, and you can see that here, it comes from that second line that we have there. It's not going to be as long. They're going to be a little bit more spread out, and again, this is a giant eye, so you're not going to have as many hairs as I'm drawing here. As they go out to the side, they're going to tend to curve towards the center of the eye, and they'll fade away as you get towards the corners. So you're not going to see these huge eyelashes on the bottom, but you are going to see some eyelashes. So don't skip on them. Make sure you're looking for them. Cool. Next part, the last part. So we can call these our eyelashes. If you wanted to have that labeled, I would, just to have our notes done. The last part of this is going to be your eyebrow, so the space that actually has the hair there. What most people forget is that there's a space between the crease and the eyebrow. You don't want to have your eyebrow like right here. The eyebrow doesn't start on the crease. A lot of people do different things with their eyebrows. There are people who leave them alone, like Joe Flacco only has one. Or there's people who wax and pluck and do all kinds of crazy things, and that's totally fine. But that does mean that each of our eyebrows are a little bit different from each other. What I want you to know about it is to pay attention to where it starts compared to the tear duct, some before, some after. It just depends on you. And it is hair, so you want to pay attention to the direction that it's growing in. You don't want to do like the Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street where you just draw a shape and color it in, because that wouldn't be hair. It wouldn't look natural. So with this, you want to start with just the strands and draw them as you see them. Now generally, closest to your nose, they may be a little bit thicker. As you get closer to your ear, they're going to go maybe up a little bit more. And then they start to thin out going towards the ear. So a lot of people will notice that they have maybe less hair as they go towards the ear, and they let it fade out a little bit as it goes. So now these are the structures. We can label that our eyebrow. Forget to label things sometimes. These are the structures of the eye. These are things that you want to look for as you are drawing yourself, so that when you go to draw you look for the tear duct, but you look for what your tear duct looks like. You look for the upper lid, but you look for what shape your upper lid takes. So all of these are structures that you want to see, but you want to draw yours. Come back in a little bit and we'll start talking about the nose and the mouth.